If you own a Midea washing machine that is not filling up with water, either no hot, no cold water, or it's dripping water into the tub consistently, filling it up without it running, or you could be even getting the E1 error code, I want to show you how to inspect and replace the water valve assembly on your Midea washing machine and other related things with this. The tutorial is also going to work for Criterion, Insignia, and some Frigidaire model washing machines too. The very first thing that I would do is look at your water supply hoses and supply system. Does the water actually work? Remove the hoses from your washer and test them to make sure that they will in fact supply water. Next, with the hoses off, inspect the valve screens. Is there any debris on the valves that could have clogged them? If you did not know, you can remove the screens from the valves with needle nose pliers to check the screens and behind the screens as well. In the case of this Midea washing machine, the hot screen is seemingly okay, but the cold screen is actually clogged quite a bit. You can wash and clean these off to make them operate better, or maybe even solve the entire issue with your washing machine with this free tip if it's not running right. Next, we need to do some tests and inspections on the valves themselves on the inside of the machine, and you need a Phillips head screwdriver and multimeter to do this. To remove the top cover, you need to remove 3 screws from these places, one on the right, one on the left, and one in the middle between the valves. Once you have all 3 of these screws off, you can roll the washer console top forward. At this point, go ahead and make sure that the washing machine is fully unplugged. Next, you could test or replace the valves depending on your situation. Either way, you need to remove the wire harnesses from the valves, and the orientation and style of these valves may vary from model to model. Some will have more wire harnesses and water solenoids on them than other models, and there's no valve on the right side of this one for reference. With the harnesses removed, take your multimeter and set the meter to ohms resistance. If the meter isn't auto-ranging, set it between 200 and 2000 ohms. You want to take the leads of your meter and press them into the 2 sides of the valve and check the metal prongs for resistance. You should get roughly 1070 ohms on each of the 3 solenoid pairs or more if you have them. If the value is off much by say 10% or more, the coils probably are damaged and need replaced. Alternatively, if they are leaking slightly into the washing machine, the valves are probably stuck open from debris and are going to need changed. To replace the valves, there are 2 small Phillips head screws on this metal arm on the front of the valves. Unscrew each screw, then pivot the retainer up and away from the valves. This will let you remove the entire assemblies of the valves. To fully replace any of the valves, use a pair of needle nose pliers and pinch the retainer on the hose. Pull the retainer away further onto the hose, then remove the water valve. Replacing the valve with a new one, you would do the exact opposite. Pinch the retainer, press the valve into the hose, and then release the retainer near the end of the barb and then reinstall it to the machine. Note that this unit has a separate hot valve and a separate cold valve. Others may have different mixing valves for fabric softener. I will have a link to everything in the description of the video for reference. Once you have them replaced, reseat the valves into the small gaps in the plastic that hold the valves into place. This can take a little bit of time to get them properly lined up, but isn't too hard necessarily. Next, make sure the wire harnesses are reinstalled to the valves properly. They should go in one way. Once you have them in, go ahead and lift the little bar onto the valves. If they're seated right, they should snap into place, but it may take a little bit of maneuvering. Once you have that done, go ahead and reinstall the 2 screws on the plate, and the steps now are done. From here, the washing machine should be fixed in almost all cases. But let's say you've installed new water valves, or you've checked the water supply and the hoses, and it still doesn't work. What would be next? There are 2 possibilities. One of them is the control board being bad, and the other is if the wiring between the board and valves has an issue. Let's start with the board first. Set your multimeter to AC voltage rather than ohms, and we're going to return to the valves. Remove the wire harnesses slightly from the valves to expose the metal of the harness, but not all the way off. From here, you'd want to plug the washing machine in and attempt to run a load of laundry, or use the fault-forced mode that allows the water valves to run. We discussed this in the troubleshooting video, which should be popping up on the screen now. If you attempt to run the water on the machine, the multimeter should go to 120 volts AC on the solenoids for both hot and cold, assuming you have a warm or hot mode wash. If you find that you are not getting 120 volts, like a lower number or nothing at all, the board is likely bad and needs replaced, and I do have other videos showing you how to access the board to replace it. The other thing to check for would be the wiring in your washing machine if it's bad. To do this, you'd have to access the control board at the rear of the machine. make sure that the washer is unplugged before you do this, and then unplug the wires from the machine, especially the one marked CN5. You would take your multimeter and do an ohm test at CN5, pin 1, and then pin 6, then pin 2, and then pin 6. This would test your water solenoids both hot and cold, like we did earlier in the video, but from the board to them up at the top. This basically tests again for the electric through the valves. If you get an OL symbol, the wiring is probably shot somewhere in between the board and the valves, and it needs viewed and replaced. Now, where I would look for possible wire breaks would be in the plastic bag that holds all the conversion wires. We've discussed this in other videos, and I'll have a link to that in the playlist for you to be able to look at it and see what could be wrong. I hope this video helps you out to potentially identify the problem with your Midea washing machine and then fix it. Again, I'm going to have links to the new valves and maybe even the PCB in the description. You should see a playlist now for more of these videos for this style machine. Have a great day.